Thank you. I mean, this is truly a great thrill and an honour and a very emotional occasion for me to be recognised in this way. First of all, I want to pay my respects and express my gratitude to the members and board of the Helen Keller Foundation, Bob Morris, Keller, Johnson Thompson, her father Warren Johnson, and the members of the selection committee. I think the work and goals and aspirations of the foundation are tremendous to continue the work that Helen Keller did to fight so that we can eliminate avoidable blindness. I think is a very noble goal and cause, as we all do in this room, working at research and education. I'd like to just talk briefly about two sort of turning points in my career, or almost epiphanies. In the end of, or in the middle of 1980, I was asked by the World Health Organization very precociously to go and look at eye care in Pakistan and to come up with a recommendation of how the eye care in Pakistan should be organised. And I didn't know a great deal, and I had a textbook and some other consultants' reports, so I spent a fair amount of time trying to do all the things that I thought should be done. And this was just shortly after the Russians had invaded Afghanistan, and there were 1.5 million Afghan refugees along those camps along the border, which now, nearly 30 years later, are still in our newspapers every day. And I was talking to people about what were the problems they were finding in the refugee camps, and ended up arranging to go and spend about a day or 2/3 of a day with travel time in 4 different camps. And in that time, I looked at as many of the young children under the age of 6 that I could, to see how many children had xerophthalmia or vitamin A deficiency and how many children had trachoma. And I added up the numbers in the back of a notebook, and then went back to Islamabad and talked to the person from the World Health Organization and showed them the numbers, and there was a problem with vitamin A deficiency, and there was a problem with trachoma. So he made a few phone calls, and we sat down with the head of the UNICEF and the head of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. And they said, well, what do we need? We talked about vitamin A supplements, the dosing, the capsules of vitamin A. And we talked about tetracycline ointment, which was the way we treated trachoma then. And they pulled out a book that looked like a massive New York telephone book, huge book. Went through the pages, and it was the inventory that the UNICEF kept in some warehouse in Copenhagen. And we wrote out basically a prescription for 1.5 million people. And so in 4 days, we had the ability to change the life of, and hopefully the vision of many of the children out of those 1.5 million refugees. And I sort of thought, if I spent a lot of time with a clinic in Melbourne, there's no way, it'd have to be a very long time before I could have that sort of impact. And that really showed me the importance of not only doing the very important work of the day-to-day one-to-one patient care that's critical in the foundation of our work, but also looking at the community or the population perspective, looking to see what one can do at that higher level to impact larger groups. But I took a 3-month sabbatical about 10 years ago, sitting in London, and at that time there were a lot of reports coming of the epidemiology of eye disease, and I was reading through some of these papers, and actually the paper that brought the epiphany was a paper that I wrote with Sheila West and Beatrice Munoz on the Waterman study we did on Chesapeake Bay, looking at the effect of UV light and cataract, and looking at the effect of smoking and cataract. And this paper we published 10 years ago. And I was in London, I had to go down to the library and pull the journal off a dusty shelf down in the bottom of the library, blow off the dust, then read it. And I was just trying to bring my mind up to date about what we'd found. And I said, this is actually a pretty good paper. It would be just a waste of time to go and repeat this paper. The results have been validated by it and confirmed by other people. Why aren't we doing something about it? Why aren't we telling people to stop smoking for their vision or to protect their eye from UV light? And that was an epiphany for me, that we're doing the research, but the research is not just to fill libraries or to fill a CV. The research is actually to make a difference. And we can't just sit there and put the research into the journals and expect a difference to be made. We've got to take it the next step. And that's led to the work we've done over the last decade of looking at these public health impact of eye disease, trying to quantify it, the work with Jill Keefe, measuring the impact of vision, developing the quality of life instruments and stories, preparing the advocacy, going to government and changing policy. And so it was those two epiphanies that really have helped me sort of change my life and the goals of the work and research that I've been doing. As I mentioned, this is a very important and a moving event for me. Laura Beckwith reproduced this photograph that I'd emailed her of my grandfather meeting with Helen Keller, and Helen Keller was an extraordinary woman who not only travelled and talked to almost everybody in the United States, but she made the whole world her bailiwick, and she travelled widely. And she visited my hometown in Melbourne in 1948 when this photograph was taken, and I was just a little boy at that stage, and I do not have any first-hand memories of meeting her, but I very much know that I did, and it was part of the family story, and every year my grandparents would get Christmas cards from Helen Keller, so I grew up knowing very well who Helen Keller was. And that made it very special because she was really one of those very special ladies like Florence Nightingale and so forth, who had a huge impact on the whole of mankind and changed the way we do things. And there's and there are a tremendous number of quotes of what this very wise and insightful woman said and wrote over many years. But one that's been with me for a very long time, and I would be confabulating if I said I knew it at this age or that age, but she starts off saying, "I am only one." And for a blind, deaf woman from northwestern, a small town in northwestern Alabama, she was only one. But I am one. Because I cannot do everything does not mean that I will refuse to do something that I can do. And so it's accepting the challenge and recognising that we don't necessarily, it's impossible for us to do everything, but there are things we can do. And we do need to pick those out carefully, identify them, and actually get them done. And that way we'll make a difference and help reach those goals of the Helen Keller Foundation of eliminating avoidable blindness by save sight, stop blindness. You should all have your wristbands on. And I think it's wonderful work, and it is a true honour to have been selected as the 2009 Helen Keller Foundation laureate. Thank you very much.